voice low, calm, close. They didn't pick the best food in the city tonight. They picked the one they recognized. They didn't pick the best pill. They picked the one they'd seen on TV. She didn't compare the specs. She picked the one that looked like what a serious person owns. Right now, at this exact moment, someone in America is choosing a product. And that product is not the best option available to them. It's not the most innovative, not the most affordable, not the best built. It is simply the one they have heard of most. Somewhere, in a garage or a rented office or a spare bedroom, there is a product that is better designed, better priced, better for the person who just bought the inferior version, and nobody knows it exists. And here is the brutal truth of the modern market. That product might as well not exist at all. This is a documentary about why that happens, about how attention became the most valuable currency in the American economy, about how billion-dollar brands were built not because they were best, but because they were loudest, and about what the quiet, brilliant, better product has to learn before it's too late. This is the story of why. Let's start at the beginning. We grow up believing something. It's not taught in one lesson, in one place. It's absorbed from parents, from movies, from every underdog story we ever loved. The belief sounds like this: if you build something truly great, the market will find it. Work hard. Build something real. Quality wins. It's the American story. It's in our founding mythology. Benjamin Franklin building a printing empire from nothing. Henry Ford revolutionizing an industry not because he was the best salesman, but because he built a better machine. Ralph Waldo Emerson, or at least the version of him we remember, said it best: build a better mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door. Beautiful sentence. Deeply, dangerously wrong. Here's the thing about the mousetrap myth. It feels right because it satisfies something deep in us, the belief that virtue is rewarded, that the universe is, at some fundamental level, fair. But markets are not the universe. Markets are human systems, and human systems run not on fairness, but on attention. Think about what a market actually is. A market is not a lab where products get tested side by side. It's not a panel of experts evaluating quality scores. It's not a meritocracy with a scoreboard. A market is millions of people, busy, distracted, overwhelmed with options, making fast decisions with incomplete information. And in that environment, the environment where every purchase actually happens, quality is almost never the deciding factor at the moment of decision, because quality requires evaluation, and evaluation requires attention, and attention has to be earned before the product ever gets a chance to prove itself. Here's the sequence that actually happens in a real market. First, someone becomes aware a product exists. Then, if the awareness is strong enough, they consider it. Then, and only then, they evaluate the quality. Most great products never make it past step one. They die in the dark, unseen, unevaluated. Not because they weren't good enough, because they weren't visible enough. As Scott Galloway, professor of marketing at NYU Stern, put it, the biggest lie in business school is that the market is rational. The market is human. And humans don't choose rationally. They choose familiarly. This is the assumption we need to break before anything else makes sense. The market doesn't evaluate quality directly. It evaluates awareness. And if people don't know a product exists, it doesn't matter how good it is. It effectively doesn't exist. When most people, especially most builders, most engineers, most founders, hear the word marketing, they picture something specific. They picture the Super Bowl commercial, the influencer with the sponsored post, the billboard on the highway, the email that goes straight to spam. They picture, in other words, the part of the company they tolerate because they have to. That picture is not just incomplete. It's costing them everything. Because marketing is not advertising. Advertising is one tool inside a much larger system. Here is the real definition. Marketing is the system by which attention is acquired, shaped, and sustained. That's it. That's the whole thing. And in a world where human attention is finite, where every person you're trying to reach has 17 tabs open, a job, a mortgage, and a school pickup at 3, that system is not a luxury. It is infrastructure, as foundational to your business as your product, your engineering, your finance. Let's break down what that system actually does. First, it decides who sees you. Not everyone is your customer. Marketing is the work of finding the specific people for whom your product is most valuable, and making sure those people encounter your name, your story, your product, at the moment when they're ready to receive it. A weaker product in front of the right people will outsell a better product in front of no one, every time, without exception. Second, it decides how often they see you. This is where most small companies make a fatal mistake. They run one campaign. They launch once. They post for 3 weeks and then go quiet. But trust is not built in a single exposure. The human brain requires repetition, consistent, sustained, repeated exposure, before it classifies something as familiar. And familiar means safe. And safe means trustworthy. And trustworthy means worth buying. In 1968, a psychologist named Robert Zionk documented something called the mere exposure effect. The finding: the more frequently we encounter something, a face, a word, a brand name, the more positively we evaluate it, not because it changed, because it became familiar. Marketing's deepest job is not persuasion. It is repetition. Third, it decides what people think about you. This is the part that goes beyond awareness into identity. The most powerful brands in America don't just occupy attention, they occupy meaning. They attach themselves to something the customer already cares about deeply. Nike doesn't sell shoes. They sell the identity of an athlete, of someone who pushes limits, who doesn't quit, who just does it. Apple doesn't sell computers. They sell the identity of a creative person, of someone who thinks differently, who belongs to a certain tribe. When you buy those products, you're not just buying a thing. You're buying a statement about who you are. That is not engineering. That is not product development. That is marketing, operating at its highest level. As Al Ries and Jack Trout say in Positioning, The Battle for Your Mind, the most valuable real estate in the world is not in Manhattan. It's in the human mind. Specifically, it's the first thing someone thinks of when they need a product in your category. That mental position is worth more than any physical asset, and it is purchased entirely with attention. A weaker product with strong marketing can dominate attention, and attention drives everything else. Sales, funding, growth, survival. The product gets you retained. Marketing gets you found. And you cannot be retained by someone who never found you. This is not a theory. This is a pattern so consistent across American business history that at this point it should be considered a law. Let me give you the examples. VHS versus Betamax, 1975. 2 home video formats launch within months of each other. By almost every technical measure, Betamax is superior. Better picture quality, more elegant design. Engineers who used both formats preferred Beta. VHS won, comprehensively. By 1988, JVC had captured over 90% of the global market. Why? Not because VHS was better, because JVC licensed VHS aggressively, putting it in more stores with more manufacturers in more American homes. They built the distribution. They built the visibility. And once enough people had VHS players, the network effect took over. The better product became irrelevant. Xerox PARC, 1970s. The research division of Xerox Corporation invented, or co-invented, the graphical user interface, the mouse, Ethernet, and the laser printer. They built the future of computing in a lab in Palo Alto. Then they did almost nothing with it commercially. Steve Jobs visited PARC in 1979. He saw the graphical interface and immediately understood what he was looking at. He went back to Apple and built it into the Macintosh. Bill Gates saw the Mac, understood the same thing, and built it into Windows. Xerox invented the future. Apple and Microsoft marketed it. Xerox is now a footnote. As Alan Kay, computer scientist and former Xerox PARC researcher, put it, Xerox had the product. They didn't have the story. And story, in the end, is what moves people to buy. Dollar Shave Club versus Gillette, 2012. A startup uploads a 94-second video to YouTube. It costs $4,500 to make. Within 48 hours, 12,000 orders. Servers crash. The product? A two-blade razor. $1 a month. Sourced from a Korean manufacturer. Not cutting edge. Not superior to Gillette's 5-blade, precision-engineered, 40-year refined product. By any objective product measure, Gillette wins. In 2016, Unilever bought Dollar Shave Club for $1 billion. Gillette's market share fell from 70% to 45% in 5 years. Dollar Shave Club didn't out-engineer Gillette. They out-narrated them. They told a story that said the quiet part out loud, "You're being overcharged." Everyone kind of knew it. Dubin just said it on camera with a straight face, and people loved him for it. The narrative took root. And once a story is in the culture, the better product can't dislodge it. Only a better story can. You've seen this pattern yourself. You've probably lived it. The app you use every day. Not because it's the best one. Because it was the first one you tried, and trying a new one feels like effort. The brand you reach for automatically at the store. Not because you've compared it to alternatives, because it's just always been there. This isn't accidental. It isn't a coincidence. It's structural. Because most users don't compare products deeply. They don't have time. They don't have the information. And honestly, they don't care enough. They choose what they already recognize. And what they recognize is whatever showed up most often, in the right place, at the right time. That is not a bug in the system. That is the system. We need to go inside the brain for a moment. Because the reason this pattern exists, the reason visibility beats quality so consistently, is not a flaw in the market. It's a feature of human cognition. There are 3 reasons. Each one builds on the last. Reason 1. Attention is limited. The human brain processes approximately 11 million bits of information per second. It consciously processes about 50 out of 11 million. The rest is filtered, discarded, never evaluated. In a market saturated with options, where your product is one of 10,000 in its category, the probability that any given person will stop, notice, and evaluate your product on its merits is close to 0. Unless you have given that brain a reason to stop, a pattern it recognizes, a name it has seen before. Familiarity is the trigger that converts an ignored stimulus into a considered option. Without familiarity, you are part of the 11 million bits that never make it to consciousness. Reason 2. Trust is built through repetition, not quality alone. In 1973, psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky documented something they called the availability heuristic. The principle: we evaluate the importance and trustworthiness of something based on how easily it comes to mind. The more easily we can recall a brand, the more times we've seen it, heard it, encountered it, the more credible it seems. Not because the quality has been proven, because the familiarity has been established. This is why brands advertise even when they have nothing new to say. Why Coca-Cola, the most recognized brand on earth, still spends $4 billion a year on marketing. They are not informing you about Coke. They are maintaining the neural pathway that makes Coke the first thing you think of when you want something cold and sweet. They are purchasing memory, and memory is the raw material of trust. As marketing writer and entrepreneur Seth Godin puts it, people don't think about your product. They're busy. They have 17 tabs open and a job and a mortgage. You are fighting for a fragment of attention in a universe of infinite content. And that's not a marketing problem. That's the foundational reality of every business. Reason. 3. Distribution beats perfection. This is the one the business schools don't always say out loud. A good product without visibility is invisible. A decent product with visibility becomes dominant. Not because the market is stupid. Because when the market has to choose between the unknown excellent and the known adequate, and the choice has to be made in 3 seconds, with incomplete information, by a person who has 12 other things to do today, the known adequate wins. Every time. Availability is a form of quality. When something is easy to find, easy to access, and easy to choose, that ease is itself valuable. And distribution creates that ease. The company that puts its product in front of more people, more often, in more places, wins the first purchase. And the first purchase is the gateway to proving quality. Without the first purchase, quality never gets a chance to speak. Attention is the starting line. Quality is what happens after. And most great products never make it to the starting line. Let me be precise about what this documentary is, and is not, arguing. This is not an argument that product quality doesn't matter. It does, enormously. A great product that gets attention will always outperform a mediocre product that gets attention, over any long enough time horizon. Great products reduce churn. They generate word of mouth. They build the kind of loyalty that no advertising budget can manufacture. But here is the sequence that the evidence demands. First comes visibility. Then comes evaluation. Most people confuse the order. They build first, market later, or market never. They treat attention as the reward for building something great, rather than the prerequisite for anyone discovering it. That confusion is not just a strategic mistake. It is expensive, often fatally expensive. Think about the companies that got this right. When Steve Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, 90 days from bankruptcy, the first thing he did was not fix the products. The first thing he did was launch Think Different, a campaign that advertised no product at all, just a philosophy, just an identity. He rebuilt the attention before he rebuilt the product, because he understood that without the attention, the better product would launch into silence. Airbnb in 2009 had almost no money, and a product that mainstream investors thought was insane. Their solution? They built a tool to cross-post listings to Craigslist, connecting their new product to where the attention already lived. They didn't create attention from nothing. They built a bridge to attention that already existed. Dollar Shave Club spent $4,500 on a video and generated 12,000 orders in 48 hours. Not because the razor was revolutionary, because the story was perfectly placed, perfectly timed, and perfectly targeted at the exact person who was ready to hear it. In each case, attention first. Product quality as the follow-through. As Joni Ive, Apple's former chief design officer, said, "Every great product launch is the second act of a story that was already being told. The product is the payoff. Marketing is the setup, and you cannot have a payoff without a setup." The real lesson is not that marketing matters more than product. The real lesson is that they are not separate activities. They are the same activity, executed in sequence. First, you make sure enough people know you exist. Then you let the product do what only the product can do. Keep them. Build for both, always, simultaneously. Or build in silence, and wonder why nobody came. That person in the office. Building something in the dark. Here is what I want them to know. The product is not enough. It never was. It never will be. This is not cynicism. It is the most important truth in the history of American commerce. The question, "Is my product good enough?" matters. But it is the second question. The first question, the one that has to be answered before any of the rest of it matters, is not, "Is my product good enough?" The real question is, will enough people ever see it? Because in the real world, being seen often matters more than being perfect. Build the better product. And build the system that makes sure the world knows it exists. The market doesn't reward the best. It rewards the known. Make sure you're both.